Okay, so the alien Toothathon is our main creature, in the eye Calanthek, and this, started off, as a simple concept. We did variations on this concept. This is the one I actually chose, and things I liked about it was that I really wanted this character to be upright for the most part, and I wanted the face to be like pretty disgusting and have multiple appendages. So this was a fun concept to see and also to animate with and bring into the little bit we see it in the short, because it's brief, but it serves its purpose. So here, this just shows kind of the scale of the creature next to our character that we just walked through. So it's quite menacing as far as the height. This is just kind of its T-pose. But the detail that went into creating this is pretty important to me as a filmmaker, and I felt like we can actually execute a lot of this in Unreal. Actually, there was pretty much almost zero limitations that I found in this process. So I think when it comes to designing a creature, this was a lot of fun, and I think that you should never feel intimidated by the fact that, or limited to what Unreal can actually, you can actually create in Unreal. So this creature actually is available on the marketplace, so you can mess around with it yourself. So if you just type in, just my name really, Aaron Sims or ASC or Toothathon, if you can remember that, you can download it and start messing around with the asset itself. We created the creature. You can really break it down, and this is this is what I suggested before. And what we're trying to do is help others, make better products and tell their stories and be artists in ways that they can really achieve their goals. And so this kind of helps when it comes to a creature, having the ability to take this and mess around with it, I think is going to be a great benefit for all of you. So there's 4 different animations. It's just the one character, and it's got textures, materials, everything. So if you just create a project, you browse where you're going to put it, on your computer, obviously, and then download it, and you can open it up and start messing around. So the project is pretty straightforward. It's basically got the character, it's got animation, it's got the rig. You can mess around with anything in here. There's a basic light setup in here. So let's see. Let's go to the character. So this is basically just this is the folder where the character would be located. The animations are here. So if you click on any of these, they'll open up the sequencer for that. Like this one here is just the crawl. So it's got some basic crawling animation. You can hide all the. There's basically if you hit G on the key or you can go to that tab there in the viewport and hide all the camera and stuff. You want to just scroll through it. Lights, all that stuff that kind of muddies up the screen. So it's basically, this is keyframed animation here, and so you can see how on the rig itself it's set up to where all the keyframes are there. You can create your own. You can modify what's here. Just have fun with it. But I think it may look intimidating with all the different controls on it and stuff. But once you get you start messing around with it, you'll understand what each one does. And I highly recommend you do that. So you understand how you can actually animate a character inside Unreal. So we designed this creature so that, again, so it could be terrifying for for film, but we also wanted to be able to give this to you guys out there to mess around with to see how we actually create this stuff. And so I think, definitely open this up, mess around with it. If you also basically once you click on the control rig, then it'll open up this animation tab. This is for the controls. You can see all the different tabs to hide the controls. Like if they're annoying, it's like, well, how can I get rid of them? There's a little tab there, just basically, as you see over there on the left, that's just hide control rigs. And then you can click it on and off. That way you can actually see your work and not be distracted by the control rig being in the way and not seeing what you did. And this was just a simple animation that was cycled, and then it just was translated to be able to, and duplicated several times, moved over, and which is, definitely a way to do stuff that's crawling. Here's one. This is basically it dying, the creature dying. Now, the reason this is actually in here, we were doing a version of this film before where actually it did get shot, and it dies. And we thought, well, let's just keep that animation for everybody to mess around with and see. So you can also see what's kind of fun if you analyze it, that we actually were able to scale certain things, like scale the rig to get the arms to kind of sink into the body. So it's kind of a cool thing just to mess around with and see what we did, and just have fun, because it's not just limited to just the actual scale that's there. So you can mess around and you can actually see in the timeline and in the keys how that was created. But it was just kind of a fun thing. It was a little bit on the comical side, and this is, we were there was going to be effects and everything else on top of this. So as a standalone, it may feel a little strange, but I thought it'd be kind of fun just to share this with everybody since we had the animation. And you can see how that one arm is just scaling into the body, making it look like it's shrinking. Now, the idea with this is that we were originally going to have something that was going to affect the creature in a different way, opposed to the welder that we went with. So, and this is just an idle. So the other one is here. You'll see it's just kind of breathing. It's like you'd see in a typical game. It's an idle in between an action. It's it's just meant to kind of keep it alive. So you can kind of see that's especially for games, you see this all the time. And the beauty about creating something in Unreal like a film and having all these assets is you can turn it into multiple things. You can turn it into a game. You can turn it into a feature, a short, whatever you want. And then this last one here is just it standing up, and this is meant to just kind of be kind of creepy. It's standing and screaming. So we, the goal here was just to kind of have it kind of all collapsed, down, and then when it raises up, that it reveals what it is. And what's really cool is inside the mouth, we have these, in the rig, we actually have this kind of constant movement inside the little teeth and fingers inside the mouth, which is kind of disgusting, but also very cool. But you can, again, look into it and break it down, analyze it, and have fun with it. But, this is the actual creature that we used in the short. So there's a lot of things about it that, changed a bit, the way we shot it, as far as how wet it was, which you can adjust, shader and all that stuff. But everything is exactly the same as far as all the tools and rig and shader. It's the fact is that you can actually adjust something easily with this. So this is open up the blueprint for the creature, so you can kind of see it in its neutral pose, and you see all the different shaders that we actually have. All these shaders you can go in and tweak and and analyze how that was set up. A lot of the shader work is based roughly on MetaHuman. It doesn't have as many controls as the MetaHuman assets, but and materials, but it does have quite a few in here for, like, roughness, the basic stuff, but also just you can go in and tweak the maps themselves if you feel like you're not getting the range you want. Now there's the mini roughness, which is like the fine detail, and then there's the global, and then there's the mix. So anything you do, you want to tweak in here. You save it so that you can see that how it applies, and then if you want to continue, then if you feel it's too wet, if it's not wet enough, if it's not rough enough, or the normals need to be intense, you can. Now this part here is the shader for the saliva. Now the saliva is an interesting thing because we wanted to create actual dynamic saliva that you can animate with, but that isn't an effect really. This is based on geo, and we've used it on various things, and it's pretty efficient because what you can do, how it's set up, is that this is pretty much like a glass shader that's on it, but the idea is that, and it works really well, is that it's basically it scales to the rig itself, so it's attached to the rig. So when it moves, then it will move with it and collapse and stretch. Some really cool and fun stuff. So things like that are like tricks so you don't have to over-engineer or build something from that you may feel like I don't have time to create like an effect for saliva, but you want saliva. Geo is a great way to do that, and it may be a combination of that with particles and some dynamics. But we didn't have to for this because, again, it served its purpose. All right, so the shaders are set up. We went over this a little bit, but they're all separated into individual body parts. You have the head, the torso, the arms, and legs. Again, you can adjust any of these areas. The roughness, just to get and the roughness really is mainly the roughness and spec is really the shine of your character. So by adjusting the roughness is meaning how rough it is, how much the less rough it is, the shinier it is. It becomes more like there's no surface detail. And spec is obviously it's the highlights. So it's kind of a combination of those two, that if you want to adjust the subtlety of the sheen that it actually has. And always keep in mind that any of these adjustments that you do, since they are in separate body parts, like the head, the torso, the legs, the arms, that you may want to consider just making sure that the values in your other body parts are similar to the one that you adjusted. Otherwise, it may look a little odd, especially from a distance. If you see like the leg being really shiny and the body not, so. But you can tweak them. You may decide that the head or the torso looks a little shinier than I want it to be, and everything else looks fine. So that's why we separate it for a little bit more flexibility, and the other is just more control, and as well as the detail that we could get on a creature of this scale. So setting up lights in a scene too for a creature is always the basic lights that we actually have in the scene they're fairly dark, so feel free to actually create lights. But the thinking behind lights for characters and creatures are, especially for creatures that are meant to be horrifying like this one, is it's not necessarily going to show off everything. I used a lot of like the Alien from the first Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien. The way that was shot was really quite incredible. One thing in the thinking of that creature that made it so powerful and the way we saw it is that it felt like it was kind of somewhat a part of the environment. Like it almost had the kind of same sheen that the environment had, the pipes, the weird uh, skin texture felt like it could hide in the walls. It was very terrifying. So the thinking in this creature was the same thing. There's a rock element to its its textures and its look. Color palettes, very earth tones. There's a little bit of purples and stuff on the inside, and here to break it up. But for the most part, I wanted it to feel like it fit within this environment. So that was, a really part of the thinking of how this creature was designed, and also have multiple limbs to be able to grab anything and climb up the terrain. So I'm just adjusting right now, like the light source here is our sunlight. So I'm taking that down so we can focus more on the environment or lighting for this character. Now the scene that we're actually in right now is not the same scene as that was created in the film. The creature is identical, so but again, most of the stuff that was created in the environment for the project was made of the same rocks from Megascan. So rec lights, this is a rec light that right here, they're pretty powerful. They're a lot like studio lights. They basically have the barn doors that you'd have on studio lights. There's a lot of similarities to a spotlight, but it has those other elements that kind of really give you a lot more control and fall off where you want it. So I use rec lights quite a bit for character rendering and lighting, just because I feel like I have a lot more control. I can actually have like the barn door shadow an area without having to put a card or something in there. It's actually doing that like it would on a set. Part of what I'm thinking here too is like when you have a dark environment, is putting like rim lights are really good. Like you can see on the edge of the creature's mouth, plus trying to light like the saliva in the inside of the mouth. So sometimes that can be tricky because it's to see that it's a lot in movement. And here in a second, I'll show you kind of the scene from the film and how that saliva, which is exactly what you're seeing here, worked well based on the lighting and the camera. So you can see, again, looking at the different shaders, what I'm noticing here is that now that we put some lights here, the legs look really a little too wet, a little too shiny. So again, that's once you start setting up your lights, then you may want to adjust as you go, just to kind of help give you the control and the look you want. Not always every shader and texture adjustments will work in every lighting scenario. And you shouldn't think that you're actually going to have a scenario that it does. It's everything is a tweak. So as you're setting up lights, you're setting up the tweaks to the shader by how wet you want it. And all that stuff plays into kind of telling your story of how you want that creature to be seen, and how you want to realize it. So that's just some of the textures, the specular, the roughness. And you just keep messing with it till you're happy. All these little controls that are put in here give you a lot of flexibility, like the minimum roughness to the maximum in the global, and that's same with spec as well. Gives you a lot of control to get like the little fine wetness and roughness and detail that you want. And what I find is for characters and creatures especially, is having some wetness, some sheen to it helps show off the detail and also helps light it. If it's too matte, then it falls into darkness really easy, and you also, especially in movement, you lose a lot of your character if it's in a dark environment. So adding a bit of spec and roughness in the right place is really important for creatures, especially this creature. And there's also the metallic. This is another part of the sheen. So the metallic is an aspect that's actually reflective. So it's going to take the environment and reflect its surroundings on it. So spec can do a little of that, but the metallic is really the key to reflecting the light and the environment around, which will help kind of really pull the character into that world. So yeah, just have fun, mess around with the lights. But like I said, I use reference and from films, from photography to help guide my lighting. This is again, I've said this several times, but I think it's part of the most important part is do a lot of research, and especially if you don't have experience lighting, you can easily overlight something or make it muddy without knowing what the end goal is. So studying lights and light setups from film is very important if you're making a feature. So just right here, I'm just playing around with. You can bring lights into a scene, animate them onto the sequencer. So the sequencer is very powerful. We'll get into a little bit more in the next chapter for mocap and animation, but the sequencer is really kind of where everything happens. It's where your entire environment, your world, your characters are all brought in, and you have the control of being able to animate them in the sequencer. It's got the timeline. It's So now I'm just scrolling through to show you the new lighting and darken the background and adding more lights on the creature so we can kind of see it a bit more. But you can adjust anything. There's almost endless things you can animate in Unreal, and I think that the sequencer is really like where a lot of that takes place. So it's your camera is animated through there. Your lighting, your character effects, all of that can be animated through the sequencer and gives you total control. So moving around the camera and being able to light and animate all inside the sequencer is just a very powerful method that may be new to a lot of people as far as animation goes, especially for character animation. There may be aspects that are so different from what you're used to. But what I actually enjoy is that being able to have this timeline that has everything in it. It has the camera, you can actually edit in it, but everything can be adjusted within this sequencer. So it's very powerful. So just to give you a little idea, like if you click on that little blue icon, you have to click it on. That's the key. That's on the top of the sequencer. You can see it's the only other the middle blue one. That's actually the auto key. So now going through the timeline where I want to adjust something, say the hip or the head or anything like that. Now it's auto adding that key to as I adjust. So that makes it easy. I mean, I actually enjoy it because I don't have to think about hitting, the key as I move on. Okay, as we go back into this project, this is the actual project from the eye. Here's the same creature. So after lighting it, you can see the saliva in the mouth, which is pretty cool. You can actually, it's because the actual angle that we have here, and when we actually add motion blur to this, some of that will get softened, but it definitely reads, which is great. So the idea here was that this is lit from her welder, and there's a bit of key light, or some rim light to help emphasize like the hand and everything else that we're not getting in there. So, but this is the lighting, and I kind of went with a greener tone overall, just because green, this is overall inside a lot of this, inside the cave is a greener tone, so she when it gets to the creature, because green is an unsettling, even though there's a lot of beautiful things that are green, like vegetation, but for film, it's green has an element of sickly feel that makes you feel uncomfortable. It's all colors and tones have a mood to them, to our psyche. So the color palette I went with, the lighting here was on the greener side. You'll see that in a lot of horror films. Even Matrix is one that really utilized green quite a bit. So how this is, so going back to, we saw a lot of the setup, and this character again can be completely keyframed, and a lot of this, especially the fingers and the mouth was, but the body was actually was mocapped. So we did this, this is just one of the mocaps, but this is after she shoots it. Now it's attacking. So because I knew this character was going to be a biped character, I thought, doing mocap for almost anything we could, let's do it. Because, instead of spending a lot of time animating things that we can just put up the suit on, the XN suit, and jump in and start playing around, then that's what we did. So doing that, then, we brought that into here, and then you see the movement, and then right after this, then the character gets, I think it gets shot here, yeah, so it gets shot. So if I change the timeline. So this right here is like the timeline. The green is the end, and then this is the out on the sequencer of the camera. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the next sequence for animation mocap, but giving you a little bit of this right now. But here you can see that was that same, like getting shot and then falling back. And it just saved us so much time doing it with mocap. So down here is like, getting up off the ground and then turning around and screaming and then getting shot and then doing back. Just fun stuff. Also messing around with lighting, like, where it's like, and focus is sometimes fun too, because that'll add to the intensity of a scene to where you feel immersed. So this pretty much covers the creature part, how we created the creature. We didn't really get into the modeling aspect of this creature in detail. I think there's tons of tutorials on that out there. So I feel like, the important parts that we're actually talking about is what was the thinking behind this creature? How did we create it? And now you can mess around with it yourself, which is, a lot of fun. So I'd love to see what you guys do out there with Toothathon. And now let's move on to mocap and animation.